At the end of the semester, I'm going to California, so I need out. Like forever, Kane, because I can't do this. I can't do this life.
But it's still Noma's business. You want it in the game? Now you're in.
Will Effie survive, escape the game, and make it to Stanford in California? That's the question heading into the final episode of Go Season 4, where it comes to Effie Morales. She's always been chasing this freedom. She always had this end goal in mind where she wanted to make enough money to pay for her education, and then when the time was right, she was out the game. Her plan was to always go straight. Unfortunately, we all know it isn't just that simple. Just like Kane said in 409, you wanted to be in the game, now you're in. Something Rock said to Kanan in Raising Kanan.
You pull that trigger, you in it. Ain't no going back now.
So, heading into episode 10, will Effie do enough to survive and also head off to California, where in essence, she'd be out the game and able to live a life where she may no longer have to look over her shoulder? Is that possible in the world of power? That's the topic of discussion in today's breakdown, as we dissect all things Effie Morales for the final episode of Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4. Now, I do think it is worth just revisiting Effie's character description that was released before Season 4 began, because it will give us a foundation and there are kind of a few things we haven't seen play out just yet. So, her character description reads, entering Season 4, Effie Morales is very aware that the game will only end in one way for her, so she doubles down on herself and her ultimate goal, a PhD in robotics from Stanford, and she needs to get to Stanford as soon as possible before she gets any deeper and finds it impossible to get out of the life. With the help of Professor Bennett, she applies to a co-term program that would allow her to finish up her undergraduate degree and begin her PhD studies in Stanford. But once Effie is officially accepted and the future she dreamt of is within reach, she questions whether or not she's ready to leave behind everything she knows for it. However, there is one thing we know about Effie for sure: she's a survivor. So, that's Effie's character description, and there are a few points from this description that we will come back around to throughout this video. For example, Professor Harper Bennett, who we've still not seen, which may have been a cutscene that may not have made the final cut, but also how her future is within touching distance, but how it also seems so far away. Now, first things first when it comes to Effie. Entering Season 4, she found herself a little conflicted. She made the decision at the end of last season to betray Tariq and go behind his back. Although on the flip side, you can argue, did Effie really owe Tariq? Should Tariq have seen it coming from someone who betrayed him before? I personally think he should have. But you could tell those feelings were still there for Tariq, but it was a mixed bag of emotions. She didn't want to see Tariq hurt, but she really also cared for Kane. Like genuinely cared for him, because he's someone who's been there for Effie, both in Season 3 and 4, with no agenda attached.
Everything that you did with no agenda. I forgot how that feels.
The latest move that we saw from Kane was how he tried to help Effie escape the game from under Noma by delivering the information on the Dirty Task Force. But because they were still missing the name who snitched on the Russians, Effie was going nowhere. However, even if they did find the name, if it was a Monet and they gave the name to Noma, I'm sure she would have turned around and made another excuse to keep control over Effie. There was no way Noma was going to just let someone like Effie, who brings a different kind of skill set, just leave. The same also goes for Kane. Despite their love for each other, I do think they really do care for each other. I made the point in my breakdown in 409 in terms of the sex scenes, which I normally don't pay too much attention to in my breakdown, but this one was definitely telling and also had a deeper meaning. You had Kane and Effie making love, whereas with Nomar and Davis, it was just kind of friends with benefits. You could clearly see the stark contrast. Earlier in the season, Effie also gave up the interview opportunity she had lined up at Stanford to help Kane. So, despite this relationship having its ups and downs in Season 4, despite Kane's decision to marry Noma, they ended up coming back together because they understand each other. And after episode 10, we can make a good case of how they've gone through something very similar in the past in terms of both of them being sexually abused. Now going into episode 10, where do they take their relationship? We all know Kane is going to give zero fucks as he tries to get revenge on Noma, but I do think there has to be a final moment between the two. Whether that's before Kane potentially bites the dust, goes to prison, or before Effie does, or before she goes to California. I do think there has to be a final moment and a real kind of touching moment between the two, before things come to a conclusion for Season 4.
Sounds like fucking you problem.
For all my mistakes, you know, I can still be proud of my little girl.
Now, when it comes to Effie's backstory with her mother, I think what we saw wasn't enough. But I'm genuinely not surprised either. We've been asking questions about Effie for around 5 seasons, and with 3 episodes left when they introduced her in 408, what could they have possibly given us to complete her backstory in just 3 episodes? It just felt as if Melissa was thrown in, just so they could say, here's Effie's mom. When I first heard about Effie's mom being introduced in season 4, which was well over a year ago, I thought they had the perfect opportunity to complete some of the missing pieces we have of the puzzle that dates all the way back to Power, something like they did with Jukebox and Kenya in Raising Kanan. Early on we had stories about Kenya, where they laid the foundation and gave us a bit of history in season 1. They then gradually built her into the story due to this broken relationship between Jukebox and Marvin. This forced her to kind of reach out and find her mother for more reasons than one. She was looking for someone to give her something Marvin wasn't, and also because she wanted answers as to why she left when she was younger. We then saw them rebuild their relationship. They went on shopping trips, they bonded over their love for music, but we also saw the extreme trauma that they went through over the course of season 2. It was a really patient build-up in terms of laying the foundation, Kenya then coming back into Duke's life, explaining who she was, who she became, and ultimately, Duke deciding she didn't want Kenya anywhere near her life, where she was also caught in the crossfire in this war with the Italians. Now, just bringing it back to Power Book 2 Ghost, I would have loved for them to bring Effie's mom into the picture a lot sooner than they did. If she came into the story in part 1, if they gave them enough time to kind of build the story, allow them to have more conversations, maybe rebuild the relationship, or instead, have Effie's mother causing Effie more problems, maybe even giving us the answer as to who Effie's brother was that was killed in a robbery gone wrong. Maybe we could have kind of had stories of Effie saying something along the lines of, I had to deal drugs just to get by at Choate because you weren't there for me. I could barely afford books or clothes. It was me, myself, and I. Kind of giving more substance to why Effie is so independent. So, I do wish they gave us more in terms of Effie's backstory, but again, I think it took way too long. A lot of the audience kind of just now think, yeah, whatever, we're not even kind of interested. So, moving on. In episode 409, we saw Effie being accepted into Stanford while they were kind of having their final exam. She received an email of acceptance, which I did mention. In a world which is full of so many dark moments, this was a sign of hope. However, hope in the world of Power is also very dangerous, and we've all had the saying, it's the hope that kills you. And what do we think? Does Effie make it to Stanford? I think this reaction when Kane said she was in the game was definitely telling. She knows she just can't leave, or if she does, there's only one of 2 ways out, death or jail, one of which she's already kind of experienced. However, she does have a bit of tiny hope going into episode 10 in terms of making it to Stanford. I did mention before season 4 began, which some didn't agree with. I said I wouldn't be surprised if we see Effie and Tariq working together again, because you could just see it coming from a mile away. Power always tends to flip the chessboard upside down, and even though Effie and Tariq would never see eye to eye again, you don't necessarily have to like each other to work together, especially when there's a common goal. Effie's always wanted to go to Stanford, and with it being made clear she can't leave the game under Noma, Tariq promised that he can make that happen in exchange for her help. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. So, in episode 10, we are going to see Effie on a little mission where she's definitely helping Tariq. She's in Carter's home on his laptop, using the skills we spoke about earlier. She's looking for the CCTV footage of Tariq and Brayden killing Zion. Whether she finds any kind of leverage on Carter at the same time, maybe. We have spoken about that before. But with her being in the thick of the action in and around Detective Carter specifically, what's Effie's endgame come the end of episode 10? Does she ultimately survive and make it to California? Or will she at some point catch a bullet? I think we have to ask the question, what does she deserve as a character? What has she done in the past, and has she done enough to earn a happy ending? Could she play that big of a role in episode 10 and make it up to Tariq where we think, fair enough, she held it down when shit got tough? I'm not too sure. I always say there are no happy endings on Power, but then again, there is a side that makes me think, maybe she will actually make it to California, maybe she will actually leave. However, I do think we have to mention Alex Lepre has gone on record to say she didn't agree or particularly like the way they ended it for her character, which could literally mean anything. Maybe because her character arc kind of felt incomplete, maybe what she does in episode 10 doesn't make sense, or maybe she is taken off the chessboard. I do think we are going to see 1 or 2 major character deaths. I think Davis McLean is definitely high on the list, and I do think there could potentially be 1 more. So, let's see if that could potentially be Effie. But that's a breakdown of where we are with Effie Morales heading into episode 10. Will she survive and make it out the game to California, and in essence, win her freedom? Or is her fate sealed? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.